Welcome to CreateGrowProfit Coaching Stories. I'm Morris from CreateGrowProfit.com, and today I'm speaking to Taylor Proctor. Taylor helps stuck businesses progress again using the IMOVE method. Taylor, thank you so much for being here today. Where are you calling in from?
Thanks so much for having me. I am calling in from USA, Utah.
Great. And just before we started the recording, we talked about being recognizable, and you stand out for quite a few things, as I've discovered. What is the thing that you do today?
Yeah, so I am a business coach and I help entrepreneurs get good at business so they can get back into the heart of why they got into business in the first place. So, to simplify that, what I am memorable for, what I do, what I stand for in my life and my business is helping others get good at business.
And what does it mean to get good at business?
Yeah, so I love this question because the types of individuals that I work with are usually in that 1 to about 7-year space of being an entrepreneur. And if you think about it, right? If you've ever been in that space or you're in that space now, you've probably said to yourself at one point or another just like, "Oh, can I get good at business already? Like I'm just ready to be good at this so that I can get back to why I got into business in the first place, whether that's freedom, whether that's offering transformation and solutions, whether that's more money. It doesn't matter why you got into the business in the first place, but once you get into business, it starts to become this full focus thing where there's so many moving parts. And a lot of entrepreneurs have these like, oh, shiny object and squirrel. Like I want this to be good. I want to be successful. I want to get good at this. So I'm doing all of the strategies, all the techniques, and it's like nothing is working, nothing's gaining traction. And so that's where I come into play. And we use the I move method to really help hone in on the areas to get good at business at so that they have that freedom, that flexibility to be able to have the success for themselves. And so, what does getting good at business look like? It is a little bit different for everyone, but ultimately, it's having the systems and processes in place, trusting that your marketing is working, moving forward with strategies that give you growth and velocity, executing with ease, like all of these pieces coming into play so that you can get back to the heart of why you got into business to first or to start with.
That is so true. Like, we all start a business with an end purpose in mind. But then in the process of building and growing that business, we kind of get lost in the in this rabbit hole called business. And in that process, either we like people burn out or they never even find their way back to why they originally started the business.
Yeah. It's like becoming a business owner is such an amazing calling, right? But that calling is usually led by the real purpose, which is, let's say, if you're a coach, right, you love to work with people and offer them transformation in their lives. If you are offering a product, right, you're creating a convenient, easy solution to people's problems. You maybe got into business because you wanted to escape the 9 to 5 and have the freedom of being your own boss. Maybe you got into business because you want to be able to spend more time with your children, or you wanted to have a supplemental income coming in so you could have more money, freedom, and flexibility that way. There's always a reason, there's always a purpose. But then when you become a business owner, suddenly you're wearing all the hats, right? You're a marketer, you're your research and development team, you're your salesperson, you are your finance person, you're your podcast editor, you're doing all these things and you're executing and you have to do the customer experience and client services on the backside too and actually fulfill on what you're offering. And so it becomes this really big snowball that, like you said, is it starts to wrap you up as you roll down the hill and get this momentum, but you start to lose sight of why you got into it in the first place. And so, what I do is I really come in and help assist with personalized and customized approaches using the iMove method to help bring them back to center without losing any of the momentum in their business, but instead giving them even more.
What was your reason for going into business, and has that purpose changed over time?
Yeah. So I actually have a really interesting way on this. I was in corporate for about 15 years and I loved it. It's funny because I got to have the opportunity to be an entrepreneur so many times. Yeah, I know. That's why I said it's an interesting take. I actually loved my corporate jobs, and when I walked away from corporate, I was in a C-suite position, And so, like, I had worked my way up. I was leading international 30-person teams. I mean, and it was a true entrepreneurial space for me, though. Like, anytime that I started to feel like I wasn't in charge of my own career and progress was when I was like, maybe this isn't the thing for me. But in most cases, I would go and I'd work at a company and they'd throw me the keys to an idea and say, make it happen. And in fact, one of the companies I worked for, I worked there for 3 years. In that time frame, they threw me an idea, and so we had 0 team members, and in a 3-year time frame, we went from 0 to 30 team members. We went from 1 service to 5, from 1 language served to 5. I spent 6 weeks living in Edinburgh, Scotland, setting up our European team. We had multi-million dollars of revenue coming in, which was unheard of in a 3-year period, all for a startup department. And in that 3 years, for the first year and a half, I didn't have a boss. I would go to other executives and be like, "Hey, can I just have a half hour of your time once a month so that someone knows what's going on with my department?" Right? I mean, we were running the financials, I was doing the hiring plans. I mean, all these things that you normally in a corporate structure you'd have the support, didn't have it. It was literally just throwing me the idea and saying, "Take it and run." And so I loved all of that, but it was because I was treating it like it was my own business, right? And I was growing it and seeing the success and leading the teams and all of those components. Well, in conjunction with that, I had started on my own personal development journey, and I started looking at coaching, and I actually got a life coaching certification, and I focused on helping people be happier. So my business was called Happiness Abound. We had a podcast, we had all those things, and I would do that in conjunction with my corporate job. And what ended up happening is that a lot of my mentoring clients, we would work together and they would get the results and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so much happier in my life. Things are so much better. Now, if only I could get my business where I want it to go." Because I was working with entrepreneurs that wanted to be happier in their day-to-day life. And I saw the opportunity there of like, well, I actually had to them, I have this whole secret life where I'm a corporate executive leading international teams from 0 to massive amounts of growth and movement and treating it because it was my business, it was my baby. And knowing all of the steps that it took to get there and being able to apply it to their needs as business owners and blending that with my happiness mentoring, right? Because with happiness mentoring, it's all about habits, building happiness habits. And as entrepreneurs, we need to build in our habits. And so I really found this conjunction of taking what I'd learned in the corporate space and growing and building businesses there, which was the foundations for the IMOVE method, right? I found that worked in corporate. I found it worked for enterprise startup. I found it worked for small business owners, right? It's this customized but approachable framework to be able to grow your business. And that helped the small business clients that I was working with grow their businesses exponentially. And so started shifting my coaching business over to get good at business and started helping people do just that, get good at business. And about 2 years ago, decided that the corporate world was great, but I really wanted to focus more on helping entrepreneurs because there's such a ripple effect with that. When you're working for large corporations and things of that nature, like your ripple effect is your team. Because it's not like we're providing these great things, but it's not this massive impact because it's the companies and the people that you're working for and on behalf of, they're the ones making the impact. And it's kind of like this, okay, we're helping them, which is great. But your real impact and triple out ripple effect is with your team and helping them grow as individuals, as professionals, and giving them good quality of life through the workplace and the culture. When you work with entrepreneurs and business owners, that ripple effect is massive because what they change for themselves and their business changes for themselves and their family, which changes for their community, which changes for all of that. And the ripple effect from the entrepreneur personal level, let alone now their business is the one helping other people. And that ripple effects out. And so it's such a beautiful and impactful way to interact with the world that I really saw the opportunity come forward and go, you know what? It is time to dive all in on this and really support the people that have that vision for their business changing the world. they want those extra commas, but they're not quite sure how to get to that. That's where I come in, and that's where we can really help support them to grow and get good at business.
Wow, absolutely love your story. Like me, I ran away from corporate, right? You didn't run away from anything. You just found something new, a new chapter in your life, something you want to pursue, and that's why you built the business. That's wonderful. And it also sounds like you don't just create profitable businesses. You help business owners become happy and profitable, or profitable and happy. I don't know if there's a priority list to that.
Yeah, and with the IMOVE method. So, IMOVE method stands for intuition, marketing, operations, velocity, and execution. And that intuition piece is so crucial because at some point, I think we've all done this where we've listened to a coach, a guru, or an expert, and they said, "Hey, if you do this in this way," it usually looks like, "Hey, I have the secret formula that nobody's using. Get it first. I used it to triple my business." Right? Whatever. So we often find like somebody says that to us, right? And we're like, "Okay, that's exactly what I want." So you follow the formula to the letter, and one of two things happens. One, it works for you, but then you're like, "I'm miserable, like, this isn't what I wanted to be doing, and, like, it's great that it's working, but, like, this isn't how I see my business and my life going." Or 2, and this is the most common, falls flat on its face. And then you're like, "I did everything that they said to do. Why isn't it working for me? Maybe I'm not meant to do this," and you kind of start down that spiral. Well, I believe that when you can take aligned and congruent action via your intuition, that is going to help you be happier as an entrepreneur in the long run. And that will build you to creating massive momentum in your marketing, which then allows you to support that with operational processes that allow you to scale, which opens up room for growth strategies that add velocity without burnout, ultimately allowing you to execute with ease. And that is the I move method. But it all starts with the I, which is that congruent, that aligned action taken via your intuition, which is where the components of my happiness mentoring really come into play because it is about being able to do what makes sense for you, take that aligned and congruent action that you're feeling called to, even if you're getting told, "Oh, no, 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 that won't work. You need to do this instead." It's funny. I was on a call with a client the other day, and she's a new client. And she's like, I was talking to one coach and they said that I need to do this. And I was talking to another coach and they said I need to do this and that I can't do this thing until I have these other things done. And I said, "So what's that thing that you want to do that you can't do yet?" And that she was like, "Oh, I really want to host retreats." And I'm like, why are we wasting our time piddling around with a course and live webinars and all of these things when you're not feeling called to do that? Energetically, it's this, I have to do this so that I can get to here. And it's like, screw that. We're entrepreneurs. You can do whatever you want. I mean, that's entrepreneurship to a T. We got into this so that most of us could do whatever we wanted. Meaning, if you're feeling called to and it's aligned and it's congruent to host retreats, let's start there and work backwards to building up your audience to support the retreats instead of, "I have to build my audience teaching this thing that I don't really want to teach to sell into this course that I don't really want to do so that they're primed for a retreat." No, that's not how this works anymore. And the alignment of that is all out of whack, which means it's going to take you twice as long, you're more likely to burn out, and it's less likely to connect with your clients. So we've got to start with that intuition piece first because that will help build the habits, the happiness, and the momentum into the rest of the I move methodology.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said energy too, because I feel like that is so underestimated in marketing specifically, where yes, you can follow the steps, you can follow the script, you can follow the course, but if your energy is off, it's not going to connect, it's not going to work. If you're not enthusiastic or passionate about what you're sharing, other people feel that, and it goes all the way to the sales call. If you're not aligned with the price, if you don't believe in what you're offering, you're just offering it because of some other expert, people feel that and it's invisible, but at the same time, it's real.
It absolutely is. And it's funny because I see this in another pattern as well. I see a lot of coaches in particular or business owners that will say, "Well, I don't want my stuff to get stolen." Or we'll see these posts out there where it's like, so and so joined my course, and then they took all of it word for word and promoting it as their own. And I've had even people say to me, well, like, hey, so what if somebody takes the IMOVE method? Because I talk about it, I promote it everywhere. Like, what if somebody starts using that? And I'm like, yeah, so? And they're like, well, it's your hard work, and I don't want somebody to steal my stuff. And I'm like, first off, if somebody does, they don't have your energy behind it. It will fail for them because they have not they're taking something that's somebody else's and they're trying to pretend that it's theirs, and the energetic exchange of that is completely scattywampus and is not going to work, and then they'll go and steal from somebody else, and they'll try it that way until they just spiral downward and downward, and then they're no longer in business anymore. Like, it doesn't matter what somebody else is doing. It matters your energy behind it. So, like, I look at that in that twofold. One, showing up as yourself, showing up with the energy of what you're actually excited and passionate about is going to have that ripple effect throughout the rest of your business in such a positive way. And also, for anyone who's afraid of, okay, well, I don't want somebody to take my stuff or things like that, that person who's taking your stuff, good luck. Like, and I say that I've had people be like, "Well, somebody could take your stuff." And I'm like, "Sure, but good luck. They're not me. They don't have 15 years of corporate experience working with clients like Google, Stanford University, Johnson and Johnson and others. They don't have experience of working with over 30 entrepreneurs helping them quantum leap their business forward. They could take my exact business structure, my exact business name, my exact everything, and I guarantee they would not get the results or the clients because they're not me." And that makes all the difference because, again, that's the aligned and congruent action of what works for me and how I progress forward. But we can apply using that intuition, using those mindsets, those beliefs, and what makes sense for the individual to help grow their businesses in the ways that are unique and aligned for them.
I feel like that's a mic drop moment, Taylor. One follow-up question though. What do you tell or how do you deal with clients who or let me rephrase this differently. You know the situation where there's something you're passionate about, like somebody, let's take the retreats, right? They want to do retreats, but offering retreats would require them to do a completely different business. You know what I mean? How sometimes the market wants what the market wants, and what we offer might not be what the market wants. So, how do you deal with that situation?
So, in that regard, I look at it in two ways. One is, I'm not saying, if you, let's say that, but going back to the one of two things happen when you listen to somebody that's an expert and they tell you to do it this way, right? We're looking at it, hey, it falls flat on its face. How do we take a line of congruent action to move forward? The flip side of that is it's working, it's successful, but I really want to do something else. I don't believe, and I call it the eat, pray, love model, because she just was like, I'm miserable with my life. I'm going to divorce my husband, move across the world, and go to these three places and eat, pray, and love, right? And it's like burned everything down to refine herself. And I don't believe in that model. And I think that's a very Americanized model of business where people are like, hey, it's not working. I have to burn it all down to rebuild something else. And that may work for some people, but if your business is working well, but you just are feeling called to something else, swap it, right? Come down to a 50-50. How can I maintain and sustain what I'm doing here while I build up the other side? And once the other side is successful and profitable and I feel amazing and it's so aligned, then you can pull back from the other side of it that's been giving you the financial stability and helping the clients and offering the results. But you can just tip the scales into the direction of where you really want to go without losing and having to burn down or eat, pray, love your business. Right. And so I think that's one of the very first things that I like to look at is, hey, if you've got something that's working for you, we don't have to burn it down, but let's find ways to start integrating this other direction that you want to go. Right. Second is, what does the world want? If you have the emotional, mental, and financial, I'm going to say physical as in time as well, bandwidth in your life. So let's say that you're like, hey, everybody, I'm going to host a retreat. Who would like to join the wait list? Location TBD. We're thinking somewhere along the beach, da 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 da. Who'd be interested and want to join the wait list? This is the type of stuff that we'll talk about at the retreat. And you post it and you get a wait list. Awesome. Then you can pre-sell and start to build it out and then have it already taken care of. Then you have the retreat, right? So if you don't, let's say you post that out and nobody signs up, that's fine. You didn't lose anything. You're not out anything. We can keep on going and moving forward and try another route or avenue or look at, okay, why didn't that work? Again, speaking with another client who hosts retreats, this isn't a common theme. I only have three that are big retreat people. But one of them, I was talking with her the other day, and she's like, "Yeah, we have a retreat coming up in 2025, and we just haven't had a lot of people sign up, and I don't know. I'm not quite sure what to do." And I went and I looked at her post, and I said, "All you're talking about is how this retreat is in Costa Rica. You're not talking about like you're selling on the location and the vacation, but you're not selling on like what are the benefits and the value they receive to come and participate and be in your retreat." And so you're not telling like, "Oh, cool, I could spend $7,000 and go to Costa Rica on my own. Why would I want to go on a retreat with other people? Like, what is the value of me going for that?" I said, "You got to speak to the details and not the details of, and we meet here at 9 a.m., but the details of, are you a struggling working mother with three kids who just needs a chance to get away and reconnect with herself, but also wants to be able to take that reconnection and have it as habits to apply to her daily life so that she can show up as a more connected and loving and caring mother, friend, spouse, family member, community member, etc. If you've been burnt out, you need a break, but you don't want to have to come back to your real life unequipped, this is the retreat for you."
Such a good example.
So much better than, "Hey, come to Costa Rica for a self-care retreat."
Yeah, yeah. Come on a 7 grand group vacation in Costa Rica.
Exactly. And so it's really looking at, okay, if we push this out there and it didn't work, what are other ways we can test this? But also, if it didn't work, and let's say that you put that out there and it's crickets, and you're like, all right, maybe the retreat isn't what the audience, the clients want or need or what have you. Let's first off look at the messaging. But then second off, okay, well, you didn't lose anything. You're not out anything. Because I always suggest to do the pre-sale before you go and put all the money in, right? But it's like, you're not at anything. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, like, well, I don't want to look consistent. I want to look like I'm hosting a retreat and then suddenly I'm not. And it's like, there is so much busyness and things happening in the world. Nobody's paying attention. And if they are, and they're like, "Oh, hey, what happened? You're not doing your retreat." You can just say, "Hey, didn't have the interest for the audience and the clients wanting it. And so we shifted different directions." There's nothing wrong with that. That's business ownership 101. We're constantly pivoting, evolving, and doing what needs to be done. And so that's my very long winded answer, too. If you have something that's successfully working and you want to move in a different direction, don't eat, pray, love it. Dial it down and push up on the other one until you can tip the scales in the direction you want. And the other option for that is start talking about that direction you want to go. Test the market, test the waters, and do that before you put any money investing into it so that you can really see that it's an aligned action for yourself and your customers.
Taylor, thank you for such a detailed answer, especially with the examples. I always love when people teach something with examples like you've done here. I feel like there's more insight in that than just, generic high level stuff. How did you get started with your coaching clients? What did you do to get your first batch of clients?
Oh, so way back in the day when I was doing the happiness mentoring, the thing that I did is I had a podcast. And I just started posting on the podcast, and I would talk about happiness, and I would offer tips, and I would offer expertise. And then I would say, if you wanted to learn more, there's an opportunity to come and work with me. Let's schedule a time to chat. And I got all of my clients just through providing high value and being an expert having a podcast. And it was a solo podcast. So I wasn't doing interviews with other people or anything like that. Showed up consistently, and I talked about my own life and where I was struggling and where I was happy and where I wasn't happy and what I was doing to fix that and how I helped other people do that. And it really just helped my business take off. And that's how I got clients, just talking about it and having the podcast. Now, same. I I speak about my business. I come on shows like this, and I talk and I share wholeheartedly. I don't hold back. And I usually have people reaching out being like, "Hey, I want to participate. I want to see what this looks like to work together." I also have I now do interview podcasts, and so I meet with a lot of people that way that end up becoming clients. And I also host summits, and so I connect with our speakers and our attendees, and those are ways that people become clients nowadays. So if that answers the first set of clients coming in and the now, but really it all comes down to, if I'm going to take that to the highest level, I think the way that I get clients is just by simply showing up, being myself, and talking and sharing my passion and my expertise for helping people get good at business.
What I really like about your approach is that you are committed to a strategy and you're all in. Like you are all in on podcasting. I know you also post on social media and you have a really good following on Instagram even. Like you have thousands of followers. But still, based on your answer, right? Like you are committed to podcasting. You got really good at it. And I think a trap for many new solopreneurs and coaches that I speak to is trying to do too many different strategies and then spreading themselves too thin as opposed to, and I was like that too, and I still tend to be like that where I want to do many things. I get excited about all the different opportunities, but you just went all in on podcasting and now you're thriving. I love that. If I understood correctly, you were posting one episode every day, is that right?
So I did an episode a day on weekdays. So it's 5 episodes a week. And when I first started, it was like, okay, I had this idea, or I saw this, or somebody said something to me, or this happened. And so I would just share what was happening kind of in real time. And then over time, if there was something where I was like, I don't know what to talk about today, I would look up a happiness quote and then share my thoughts and my insights on it on the daily episode. And then it started to shift into themes. And so I think somewhere way back in the day, I have a picture of it. I have on my wall 52 columns of sticky notes. And there's 5 sticky notes in each of those columns, each one representing an episode of a theme week. So I had 52 weeks worth of themes, or 52 weeks, yeah, weeks worth of themes, where then each episode touched base up on that theme. So it was like I suddenly had content pillars and subtopics, and then created my episodes based off of those. And so it went from just coming on and talking to having much more of a structured approach to then shifting to be about business. And it's funny because it's almost gone back where, like, I have themes and things I could talk about and it's structured and I have my content and my pillars, but ultimately it's so much better to come on and be like, oh, this happened with this client. If you're going through it, let's do it. Right. And then walking, guiding through it that way. And so it's kind of been this influx of things, but for a very long time, and I don't do it daily anymore, but for about 3, 4 years, I did it daily and I absolutely loved it. It was a great habit to be in. And the best part is when people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't do a podcast," or "I don't know, I'm going to run out of content." And I'm like, when you do it every day, you find you don't run out of content. And if you don't have anything to talk about, you will find something to talk about. But you start to look for all the opportunities of like, oh, I just saw this leaf fall from this tree and I could make that into a piece of content talking about how like we have to shed the pieces of ourselves to bloom fully. I mean, your brain just goes on overdrive when you're like, I have to create a piece of content tomorrow. Right. And so it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey.
That is so true. I just wanted to analyze that a little bit for people listening to this because most new coaches, most new solopreneurs struggle with getting clients. That's the number one pay point I hear all the time. And just based on the things you've shared is number one, you picked one strategy, went all in, and number two, you shared stories. Like you said, you shared stories from your life, then you shared stories from other people's lives, from clients, and I think that is so much more compelling than just preaching generic advice. So, what is one of your favorite business stories that you would like to share?
So one of my favorite business stories is I actually had a client come to me, and they all don't come to me like this, but she did. And she was like, look, I hired a business coach and it she promised all of these things and didn't deliver on any of them, and I don't have any money, and I'm stressed out, so I've taken the last bit of my money and I want to work with you. And I was like, okay, whew, no pressure. Right. But I'm like, I know that I'm in integrity. I know the results that I can get. And so I was like, okay, like let's talk about like what needs to happen. And she said, well, here's the thing. I have to make, and I'm one of those, I'm not one of those coaches that I talk about, oh, and you can 10x or make X amount of money. Like I think that's unethical. And so I'm not going to say the amount of money that she needs, but she was like, I need X amount of thousands of dollars to, I need that money in my bank account within 30 days. Otherwise, I'm going to have to shut down my business and go get a job. So I'm like, okay, like it's on the line. What do we got to do? So we immediately started looking at things and following her intuition and taking a line and congruent action. You'll find anyone who works with me, I probably ask this question to the point of annoyance, but we can establish something and then I'll say, okay, how's that feel on a scale of 1 to 10? Tap into your intuition. Where does that land? And if it's a 7 or below, chuck it. It's not aligned. If it's an 8 or a 9, I ask what could make it a 10 and we make the adjustments necessary. And then we ask again. And when it becomes a 10 out of 10, then it has the energy to be sustainable and long term, long after they're done working with me. Right. So I ask that question to the point of annoyance. How does this feel? Scale of 1 to 10? Because my other favorite is somebody will go, oh, it feels good. And I'm like, scale of 1 to 10. They're like, oh, 8. And I'm like, okay, well, we got to make it a 10. How do we go from good to great? So ask her those questions as we're building out the strategy and this plan. And we build out a very quick, hey, $500 offer, bring people in, utilize some of the seasonality that was happening, what she offers, and let's get this going. So she starts to implement it. And then she's like, oh, I just, I worry about being too salesy or I worry about this. And I said, look, that belief disappears. And at this point, we're like 20 days left, right, of the 30-day mark. I said, that belief disappears in 20 days because you won't have a business anymore. You're not worried about being salesy or anything else if you don't have a business. Like that's a belief you have because you're a business owner. So if you want to really hold on to that belief, wait 20 days and you won't have it anymore. Or we can get rid of that belief now and move forward and progress in your business. And I love this because she said it. She goes, oh my gosh, you're right. I don't have the time to coddle my beliefs. And I was like, yes, ma'am, that's correct. And so here's the thing is it's not that we were like, oh, shove those in a corner, we'll come back later. It was like we found them, identified them, worked through them, cleared them, and then moved forward. But she didn't have the time. She did not have the time to sit here and go, well, I don't want to be too salesy, so I'm not going to go and message people, or I'm not going to write that post, or I'm not going to send that email. It's like, we don't have time for that. And she says, I don't have time to coddle my beliefs. So, anyways, we move through the beliefs. She starts doing the aligned and congruent actions that we had talked about, and she made it. She hit her goal and then some and saved her business. Now we are, what month is this? We are now 6 months later, and she has a thriving business, is doing well, has reoccurring clients. She's maneuvering through the roller coaster of revenue, right? She's getting much more stabilized in those spaces, all because we were able to save her business in that 30-day period. And so it's one of my favorite stories because it's not about me saying, and she did this strategy and this strategy and this strategy, and that's what will work for you. It's about we followed her intuition. We cleared the beliefs that she didn't have time to coddle. She took the action based off of what we had intuitively designed for her and her business. And that aligned and congruent action has resulted in massive momentum in her marketing, which she has then supported through operational processes that allow her to scale, that she now has strategies that she continues to implement that add velocity to the business, ultimately executing all of it with ease. And that is the IMOVE method to a T. And she was able to do it in her business, and we were able to save it. And she's consistently doing better and better month over month, and has saved her business and is able to move forward confidently.
What a amazing, one of the most amazing stories I've heard. And what a transformation. What a story to wrap this up, Taylor. Thank you so much for sharing that. How can people get in touch with you and potentially start working with you?
Absolutely. So there's a really common theme across being able to get a hold of me. It's get good at business. So if you go to getgoodatbusiness.com, you can find me there. We have a Facebook group where we do interviews with other business owners and highlight and grow and have a community of business owners all dedicated to getting good at business. And that Facebook community is called, you guessed it, Get Good at Business. My social handles are Get Good at Business or Taylor Proctor. So if you just type in Get Good at Business, you should be able to find me to connect, and let's see how we can support you.
Perfect. And then I will link to your website and to your Facebook group below this episode. Taylor, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all these stories and incredible advice.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always a delight, and I love talking business. So thanks for the opportunity.